Hey everybody, welcome to A Bit of Advice. I'm Joshua Birdsell, your show host for today. I want to get a special shout out to Dennis Normella for starting this show a few months back, and so far everything has been working great on the show. We love our guests, we love what's going on, we love the motivation that we put behind it and all the hard work. So today we have a great guest, a business entrepreneur from California. And just to give you a little bit of insight behind the show, it's 100,000 likes on Facebook. We are on successradio.org, and we're on Success Radio on the YouTube as well. And we're live on Twitch, Facebook, and on YouTube. So, like I said, I'm Joshua Birdsell, young entrepreneur from Alabama. We're here to try to get a bit of advice from everybody that we come in contact with that is doing great positive things, so that we can figure out what they might know that we don't know. So that's what we have the show here for. So I want to introduce our guest, Brittany Rose.
Hello.
So Brittany, tell us a little bit about yourself. We have her on Skype here. And tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're located at right now, and what you have going on.
So I am currently in Lake Elsinore, California. I tend to spend pretty much my downtime here. So this is where my mom and stepdad live together. And my mom moved out here in 1999. So we've been here a long time. And whenever I'm not somewhere else, I'm here.
Awesome. So I read in your bio that you went to school overseas. What school did you go to, and why did you choose overseas to go to school?
Well, okay, so to be honest, it was much less expensive for me to go to school overseas through the Cal State program. So what I did was I got the majority of my work done here through Miracosta, which is a community college in San Diego. And then I went to Cal State San Marcos. And then, supporting yourself, if you're supporting yourself through college, it's very expensive. So if you're living with family, that's very helpful. But I wasn't. I was living on my own, and I was working 28 days a week to support going to college. So it ended up, 28 days a month.
Wow.
And so I ended up just thinking, well, if I have to support myself here, and it's so much less expensive to support myself in Europe, and I could get the same education. So I just went to my school supervisor and one of my mentors, and she said, let's send you to Spain. So I said, well, I'm going to graduate in Spanish anyway, and I had gotten as far as I could pretty much get with my language skills here. So I just packed up and moved.
Awesome. So what was it like to live in Spain?
So I went to the University of Valladolid, which is one of the oldest universities in Spain, and it's also one of the first language universities. So it is, I believe it or not, it's where they say Spanish originated, that specific city. It's also where Miguel Cervantes was from, which was the very first writer of the first novel, or the first novel writer. And I lived, it's a little bit north of Madrid. It's kind of in central Spain. It's a bit out of the way. Nobody really needs to go there unless they're kind of a literature major that knows about it.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So what was it? Was it like humid over there? What was the weather like?
So Spain's lovely. Spain gets all the seasons, different than Southern California. So it ranged from, well, they work on Celsius. So it would range from like -2 degrees Celsius, which I think is around, it's snowing weather. So I think that's about, what is that? It's like 25 degrees maybe here?
Something like that. I don't know right offhand. I don't want to say the wrong thing. We are live on air, so I'm going to say the wrong thing.
I think it's about 25 degrees, so it gets to be a little bit snowy, but it doesn't snow. It gets icy, and it gets, snowy for like a day or a few hours. And then it gets up to about 100 degrees, and it gets quite hot in the summer.
Wow, that is insane. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to say hello to William Jolly. We want to say hello to Jason Short in Virginia. We want to say hey to Shane Johnson and Adam, Chris Fairburn, Jason Simmons, Cody Oglesby. We have people from California, Alabama, Virginia I see on here. So we want to thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and we will ask Brittany here to see if she can pull some advice out of her. So my next question is, what was your first business that you started?
So the first business was actually, I went into business with my stepdad, and he started doing the pest control. So I started doing that with him, and that was something that I had never even really considered before. But I absolutely loved it, and he's still doing a great job. He took that and ran with it, so that's been going great, which is wonderful. We now have a couple employees, total 4 of us. And
So how many years ago was that whenever you started your first business?
he started the business, I believe, in 2011, 2012. I came home he started in 2012, 2013. I came home in 2014, and that's when I got involved. And so he had just a couple clients, and we grew it. We worked with the Marietta Chamber. We worked with Biz to Biz, helped promoted our business through community. He is now the promoter and the pest control for the Storm Stadium. We do loads of different companies in the area now, so he's pretty embedded in the community, which is wonderful. He loves it.
Wow, that's awesome. So what's some advice that you can give to the young entrepreneur out there getting ready to start their own business, kind of something like the pest control world? What did you guys do to start out? Like, how did you start? What sparked the idea?
Well, Craig's very, very good at pest control. He's been doing it for, a few decades now, since out of high school mostly. And he just got sick of how he was treated as a pest control expert. They're experts in their field, but, he doesn't hold a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. And, he didn't really like how he was being pushed around. So he said, I'm just going to go do it for myself, and I can, be respectful and treat clients well. He also didn't like sometimes certain companies, not naming names, but they would ask him to water down products or maybe leave the card as if they were there, and then he wouldn't have time to be there. So he said, I think I can do this better. And I think he was right. So I jumped right on board. I kind of weaseled my way in and said, I want to be a part of this. And did the marketing for everything for that.
That is so awesome, and it seems like it's every success story behind a business seems like it's almost like the same thing. It's like a rerun almost, because it's somebody that had a passion for something that they did. They worked for somebody, and then they figured, hey, I can do this better. They're taking shortcuts. They're doing this. They're doing that, and then they finally just get tired of it, and so they just start their own thing. And that seems to be the most successful way to do it. Is just find something you're passionate about, work for a while. Don't jump the gun and go ahead and start your own business unless you have something that you're passionate that you can put behind it. So it totally makes sense why he was so successful, why you guys were so successful. And you're also a family-owned business as well. So that also sparks a whole nother thing with customers, that customers really enjoy, having services such as that. So we want to say hey to Yannick, because Yannick says, what's up, girl, miss you, from Yannick. So he wanted to say hello there, and he's actually in the studio helping me with some of the equipment today. So we just want to give a special shout out to Yannick today. But
publisher, and I've written a couple of stories for him, and he's fun to write with. So.
Yeah, I kind of got a little bit of a scoop on you a little bit before the show. I asked him, I was like, Brittany, I need to know a little bit of scoop about her so I can ask some good questions.
Fun.
So my next question, we all know. Well, I know that. I particularly know, because I followed the story, the Thailand cave story, where all the kids got stuck in the cave. Okay, so you've actually been to Thailand, and you've taught in Thailand. So what kind of environment is it over there, and are the kids quicker to learn there than here, or what did you experience?
Thailand's a beautiful place. It's one of the places that I felt the most free, actually. There is some issues with freedom of speech over there, but to be honest, aside from that, it's one of the places that I personally have felt the most free. But it is, and when I was watching this, I'm going, why are these kids, because it's rainy season right now, and rainy season means it's going to rain. It means like you feel a drop, and you've got literally seconds to a couple minutes to get to your house before it's possible torrential downpour for who knows how long. There have been many times that I've been stuck on the street or in a 7-Eleven because it was flooded up to the handlebars of our bike, our So, I mean, there's been times that I remember coming out of school, and when it rains, all of the rice paddy fields will overflow, and all of the ponds will overflow, or the lakes. So, and there's lots of reservoirs there because they're really smart with their water. Because there's a lot of droughts, they have loads of reservoirs. So there's never out of water. So when the rainy season comes, everything floods. So everyone goes fishing in the street. So all the fish come just fly into the road, and everybody's just fishing in the streets. So you've got a few things going on, and I've definitely, and plus everybody owns carts, there's food carts. And so there's not a lot of structures. Everyone just has their carts. So when there's this downpour, it's just washed away. I mean, we all just I've seen it many times. I've seen it many times. So I was thinking, what are these boys doing? Going, cave diving in the middle of, rainy season. And then my friend reminded me, of course, he was like, Brittany, you went cave diving in the middle. I did do that, and I did not have the problems that they did, but it's easy to do because the caves there are beautiful, and they're very tied to spirituality.
Okay.
And I mean, they're magical. The place is absolutely magical. Everyone used to tell me, oh, Thailand's my favorite country, and I couldn't figure out why. I got there and I kept trying to figure out, why is it everybody's favorite country? But I can really see why. There's something about it. You go there for a day and you stay a year or a lifetime. That's just everybody's story.
So it's just good vibes there, huh? So have you actually visited those caves?
I have been to that region, but I have not been to those particular caves. The caves that I actually went diving down were a little bit more south.
Oh, okay, cool. So was it the same type of environment? Is the same as those caves?
It is. It's like, same as cave diving here. They're tight spaces, and as the water level changes, so if it's raining, like there were parts where I had to swim through, and there were parts that I was on my belly through. So, it just depends. And I'm, especially compared to Thai girls, I'm not a skinny mini. So, I had to really,
Yeah.
And it was fine. It was totally easy for me. You just got to be a little bit limber, and then you can move through. But as the water levels change, that changes the place where you're going through the rocks.
Yeah.
So if the levels down here, you're going under the rocks. If the water levels up here, you're going over the rocks. So it completely changes everything. So the way the boys went in is obviously completely different than the way
they went out. Right. That makes perfect sense. So what was it like teaching over there?
Oh my gosh, I will tell you this. Teaching over there is not for the faint of heart. If you want students to listen and be quiet and want to take part in your lesson, go to Japan, go to China, go to a place where where they do that. But in Thailand, those kids are allowed to run amok. They are like literally monkeys hanging off the ceiling. They were but I loved it. I ended up loving that, and I would much prefer to teach that because it was unorganized chaos. So if I had a good enough game, if I had a good enough plan for the day, my students were right with me. Everybody's yelling, singing, dancing, moving along. But if something was boring or I didn't put enough thought into it, those students were everywhere. And I was outrun. It was 50 students to a class. So I was very outnumbered.
Wow, that's crazy. So I also see in your bio, now that we've got a little bit of taste of the Thailand that you experienced. So I seen in your bio that your favorite volunteer work was working with rescued elephants. So why is this your favorite?
Well, there's a really interesting part. First of all, elephants have a hard time right now because they're a little bit out of fashion. And people love to go see them, and they love to hug them, and they love to feed them, and they love to ride them, but nobody loves to take care of them. And it is very expensive to take care of a wild animal.
Oh, I can imagine. I've taken care of horses before, but never an elephant.
Horses are fun. Horses are like little elephants.
Oh, cool.
But, the elephants you have to be careful with, and they're extremely intelligent. They're much smarter than horses. They're smarter than dogs. They're smarter than cats. Are they smarter than dolphins? They're one of the smartest animals. They're the top 5 for sure. And they're big, and they're herbivores. So here they are structured to be able to kill you at will, and they're also structured not to need to. So they're in a bit of dichotomy, and they're hunted, and they're abused, and they're used, and they have a rough life. There's less than 200 elephants left in Thailand.
Oh, wow.
There's, pardon me, 2,000 left in Thailand. But
that's still not that many considering how big Thailand is.
There were 5,000 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. So it's yeah.
And there's no poaching. There's no poaching there. So this is all, their numbers are decreasing due to just tourism.
Right.
It's hard to convince people of that because, the reason I got involved in the work is because I wanted to ride an elephant. I wanted to ride one, I wanted to hug one, I wanted to touch one. When I went to go do that, I ended up not riding one, but when I went to an elephant village, it was so tragic and it was so devastating. I couldn't even fake it for myself. I couldn't even defend myself and say, well, maybe not. We do that in the circus. Well, maybe they're not abused, or I don't know exactly or I don't know what sources are telling the truth. But I've done a lot of research, and I've worked with a lot of people that have worked with elephants, and I've worked with elephants myself, and they have a rough time. So it became my favorite work, because it was the most needed, it's the most interesting.
That is so cool. So, I'm from Alabama, so I would say roll tide roll when I see an elephant, you know what I mean? And I incorporated an elephant holding a squeegee like he was squeegeeing for the window cleaning business, my window cleaning business. So my logo is an elephant. So that's why I had to throw that question in there.
Nice.
I had to understand a little bit about how it is to take care of one. Because like I said, I've had to take care of horses, but never an elephant. I can only imagine how that would be.
I will
So,
tell you, we had a baby elephant, and they were chained. So I was only allowed to get next to certain ones. I knew the ones. I didn't. You don't just walk up to an elephant. You know, I don't
right.
recommend that for anybody. So there were certain ones that I stayed away from. The baby one I stayed away because he didn't know me as well, and he's extremely playful. They are babies until they're 8. So by the time they're 8, they're about 6'4". You know.
Oh my God.
So they're still babies. So he was only about 5, and I knew that he was going to want to wrestle with me, and I wasn't up for the challenge. So I tried to stay away from him. And one day I just was getting a little careless, and I was messing with another elephant. We were talking, and I turned my back to the baby, and he barely had enough room to just poke me with the tip of his trunk. And when he did that, I fell over. I mean, I don't know how he could barely touch me. Just the tip of his trunk knocked me over. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I got lucky. You know, I got real lucky.
That is insane. So, another, it's kind of, I guess, a weird question to ask after that one, but I mean, that's just the way we do it on this show. So your bio also says favorite weird food. So it says it's a pigeon. So I'm never, you can eat pigeon? Like, that's okay? That's a thing? Like, where do they eat pigeon at?
The two things we should be eating are rats and pigeons because they're on every continent. They're
Rats?
found on every continent, and they're everywhere, and they're a lot of trouble. So,
so you're saying rats too?
Well, I didn't eat any rat, but my neighbors did. But I have a little more of a refined palate than that. I was a little too snobby for the rat. But the pigeon was really yummy, and I ate that in China, and they're very common in China. And I mean, why not? They're everywhere. I mean, if you're a vegan, I have a lot of friends that are vegan vegetarians. They're very upset with me that I eat anything. But if you're going to eat anything, I think a pigeon is the least of our troubles.
I mean, it is a bird, and then too, I guess there's so many of them, and I always just think about the pigeon poop, and then I think about, I've never been to New York, but I've just seen a lot of videos, so I see a lot of pigeons in New York, so I always think about that. And I was like, man, there would be no starving homeless people if they ate pigeons.
So here's a trick. Now you're from Alabama. I don't want to assume you're a country boy, but you've got that accent. So I just, it's ingrained in me that you should be a country boy. But
oh yeah, I'm country boy.
I'll tell you what we learned in Thailand.
Okay.
You don't eat city animal. You don't eat city rats because those are gross, and you don't eat city pigeons because you don't know what they eat. They eat trash. They eat plastic. They eat lots of. But you eat the ones out in the country. The country live off of rice. The country pigeons that are just eating grain, then those are safe to eat. So that's the rule of thumb.
That makes sense because I know when we moved out here, me and my wife had trouble for about 3 months adjusting to the food because the food here it's like it's more commercial grade, I guess you would say, versus back home it's like the mom and pop shops. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of something like that. You have the dairy farms and stuff back home that are run by families, and you know them, you know what I mean, or you know their kids because you went to school with them, or something like that. So the food is a lot more fresh, and they have a lot more mom and pop meat shops. It's not, you're not going to Albertson, which I mean, you do go to Walmart and stuff to get meat sometimes, but it's not going to be the good meat, and they have it's not like it is here. It's just processed. It tastes processed more here.
You're not going to find pigeon at Walmart.
No, yeah, I would assume not. But I mean, just thinking about it, it makes sense because there's more pollution in the city. There's more humans in the city to pollute the animals. I mean, just like we think sometimes feeding birds is a good thing, but I mean, that's not what their stomachs is probably designed for. Is what we're feeding them. So we're actually hurting them at the same time.
Right.
So you ate pigeon in China. So I've heard Dennis mention a few things that he ate in China that's pretty weird. So we'll just keep that one on that note. So I have another question, and then I want you to tell me the best advice that you have learned. So this is my question: what are you wanting to teach after you get your master's from Arizona State University, which is what you're doing now, correct?
Yeah. So I decided to go back and get my master's because I really enjoy teaching, and I went to school to be a Spanish teacher, and then I enjoy teaching English. And there's one main reason that I switched on that, because I still love Spanish and I love tutoring in Spanish, but I started teaching English because of my business background, but because of my involvement in our small business.
Right.
I realized that, English is the international language for business. And if anybody in any country wants to have a shot, they have to be able to speak proper English. Even in America, there's plenty of people that maybe don't speak properly or even aren't even literate. And they might even have businesses, and they might have great businesses. But to be globally successful and to start competing in that market, you do have to be able to speak English properly. So I found a love for that, and I found a love for teaching it to non-native, non-English speakers.
That is awesome. So that's what you're wanting to do. So that's what you're in now. So you said you're in Lake Elsinore?
Yeah, so I'm hanging out.
Okay, yeah, you're not far from us. Yeah, we're in Marietta, so yeah, you know where we're at.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the Golden Nugget, and we're coming down to the conclusion of our show.
Okay.
So what is something that you've learned that you can tell an entrepreneur, out of everything that you've learned, what is one little bit of advice that you would give to a young entrepreneur?
So a few young entrepreneurs have come to me and talked to me about how I did my business with Craig. And I would say, for sure, I love the small business market. So this doesn't necessarily apply to larger markets, because that's like Gary Vee. You go to him for that because he's the expert and all that.
Right.
But for small business, I would say definitely you have to put yourself out there. Don't wait till your product is perfect. Don't wait for, your logo to be perfect. Don't tell me that you're going to start your business in 2 years because your design team is doing something. Just do it. Just find something that you love. Craig is good at pest control. He just is. And maybe to somebody else that isn't important, and maybe to somebody else that might not be, considered elevated, but he's an expert, and he deserves to be treated with respect and treated like an expert. And so he started his own business so that he could do that, and he wanted to provide good service. There are so many people in the world. We don't need to worry about competition. There are so many people. There's tons of pest control companies all over here. I mean, if anything, we're in the heart of like the most competitive industry in the business, and there's plenty to go around. So
Yes.
Don't wait for everything to be perfect. Get rolling on the thing that you love. And if you keep stalling on it, maybe it's not what you love. If you're still waiting on your logo, then maybe it's not your thing. Maybe that's not something you really want to do, because the logo has nothing to do with the product. Just get to work, and don't worry about competition, because there is so much business to go around.
That is so true, and I can actually vouch for every word that you just said, because like I was saying, I just recently started my own business, and I literally went out with no t-shirts, no logo. I mean, I was still in process of the name, and I was knocking on doors asking could I repair screens, and for $10, I mean, I wasn't going to make much money, but that $10, I gained a customer. Then they wanted their windows cleaned, so then that gained more money. Then they wanted solar screens, so that gained more money. And now, I mean, it's gone to now I'm helping their church, and and then they slowly start referring you because they're like, this guy is awesome. He shows up on time. He's very persistent. He calls me and checks on me. You have to be active if you really want to do it. You can't just sit around and talk about it. Talking about it it's just wasting time. And then eventually, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
My sister has a business, and and she's an entrepreneur. My aunt's an entrepreneur. My aunt's a millionaire now, actually. She went from a small business to a very big business, and good for her. But my sister is a small business owner, and she did a lot of that. It was a lot of hemming and hawing, and she's an esthetician, and I might do this and I might do that. And ultimately, she just had to walk away. She developed it into something else. She didn't walk out of the industry. She's doing very well for herself, actually. She's doing the best she's ever done. But she had to be honest with herself in the end.
Right.
And that's hard to do.
Right, and that's just like the advice that we got last week on the show. It's been sticking with me ever since. He said, "Do not compromise principles."
Yes.
I'm like, that is so true, and like I've been sticking to that. It really stuck to me since last week, which is why I love this show, because really it helps me grow as a person. I really hope it helps all of our viewers grow. I mean, it seems like we have more and more people watching every week, and like I said, we have 100,000 likes on Facebook already. So I mean,
Nice.
it's definitely been able to help people, but especially helping me, because like I said, I'm just now getting out here to California, starting my own business and everything, and I painted cars for almost 9 years, so I'm in a totally different industry. but it's different. It's a different culture out here than it is back home where I'm from. So you have to learn how to adapt to that culture and find what you're passionate about. Find something, even if it's not the same thing that you went to school for. Find something that it's kind of relevant. Like I would consider, I had to clean a lot of parts before I painted them.
Right. And I started a business out in Thailand. We didn't touch on that, but I ended up starting an English camp business out there with a friend of mine, and we made good money, real good money. But negotiation tactics, style, everything changes. And you know your audience. I just couldn't walk in there, high and mighty as I'm an American business owner, like I knew what I was doing. You have to walk in there. You have to be humble, and you have to know your audience, and then you'll get them every time. People will work with you. So.
That's very true. And I had to work for a company to learn how to do all that stuff too. So, I mean, it just takes a lot of work, a lot of time. It doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to become a millionaire overnight. I mean, I don't care what anybody says unless somebody dies and you get a whole bunch of money. But you got to work, and it also helps the time go by and it helps you grow. Right.
I'd love to piggyback off that if you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
When you said that, it reminded me of my aunt who, so she owns Rainbow School of Dance. They're a multinational company, and they're doing very well. And she's worked hard. And she says, Brittany, it's really interesting to me because obviously being a millionaire that she is. I mean, I use that term. She doesn't use that term, but
of course.
Just for a frame of reference, that she's incredibly successful in her business. She said a lot of people want to come to me and say, how do you get your business to work for you so that you don't have to work it? And she said, I've never been able to walk away from my business. The day I walk away from my business is the day I start losing a little bit of money. So she said, I'm not the right entrepreneur to ask. I've never met an entrepreneur that doesn't work their business to the bone, and they don't work the hardest in their business. All the entrepreneurs that I know that want to create something and walk away and do this like rich dad, poor dad, I'm not saying anything is against that, but I've just never known any of them to become successful personally.
Right, because I mean, on a daily basis, we're having to spend money, and with more money comes more problems, it comes more bills, comes more everything, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. Like, oh, when I become a millionaire, I'm going to be still sitting on the same rent I am now. No, you're not. You're going to go get you a nice car. You're going to go get you all the little things. We're all human, you know what I'm saying? And that's just how we are, that's how we're wired and we're programmed. We can say we're going to do whatever we're going to do, but at the end of the day, I mean, we're human beings, nobody's perfect. We're still going to, and that's why I feel like if you work for it, you'll appreciate it. Right. If you work your butt off trying to build a business, you started it off from scratch, started off from nothing, and then you go buy that car, you're going to appreciate it. If somebody just gives you the money, you won't appreciate it.
Well, the truth is that you started your business with a passion. If Craig just wanted to start this business so he can walk away, how passionate is he really about pest control?
Exactly.
If this business grew to be $1 million business, he'd still be working as pest control. He still would. I mean, maybe working less, maybe working different, maybe have a better truck. He'd still be working it, and I'd still be working from an office. Doesn't matter. Maybe my office might have a chandelier, but I'm still working in my office. Because that's what you do. Unless you're going to sell to Terminex, you're going to sell to some big company, and that's your goal. Well, then that's a different business idea, and that's a different goal, and go for that.
Exactly.
But you're trying to work your business to get rid of it. Then you're not trying to work your business to be in it.
Exactly. You're very right about that. You have to be passionate about it, and people see that. It's very noticeable whenever you're talking to your customer base if you're passionate behind it or not. Because if you just show up and give them a quote and say, "Hey, this is $100, have a good day," or if you go in there and you say, "Hey, look, let's cut you a deal. I'm going to give you 20% off. We're going to come every 3 months. And if you let us come every 3 months, we'll give you this kind of deal." And you have to be thinking like that all the time. You want to tell them what you would want to hear or how you would want to be treated. And that's what has worked for me. I've worked for a lot of different people. I've seen a lot of different ways I didn't like, some things that I did like. And I've taken those and started my own. So I can definitely vouch for your golden nugget and your advice. I really can, because I'm going through that now. I mean, I'm 27 years old going through it. I don't have any kids, so I'm just growing my business right now, spending my time doing that. But
that's awesome. That is just great. It's inspiring.
Well, we are coming down to the end of the show. I know, guys, we started late. I know I didn't want to mention that at the beginning. We were having a little bit of technical difficulties. We were trying to make sure we had a good connection and everything. So we did go over a little bit today. Normally we end at 6, but at 6:10 because we started at 5:40. So I just want to thank everybody today for your time. Brittany, you have been an awesome guest. If you want to throw out any way for anybody to get in touch with you or anything else, a little special shout out for the end of our show, I'm going to give you the floor for the next couple minutes. So go ahead.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. They can reach me on Facebook at Britt Rose Writes, BritTrose WRITES. They can reach me on Instagram at Teacher Rose. You can read my blogs at thewindowseat.com, and they can hit me up any way they need to.
Awesome. Well, again, we thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We got a great guest next week. And Brittany, it was a pleasure. It seems like these shows always go too quick. I would love to maybe catch up with you on another day and ask you a little bit more advice, because you definitely had a lot more experiences with around the world, and I would like to travel and see the world, and I don't even know a lick of anything but English, and my English is Southern English, so it's not even real English. It's just kind of like a twang of English, you know what I mean? So
it's spicy English. It's good.
But I still would like to learn Spanish, especially. It would definitely help me out here, because I know a lot of people speak Spanish out here, and I could do a lot more business if I knew a little bit of Spanish. So maybe we can connect in the future and maybe have another part 2 to this show, and you can teach a little bit of some other stuff that you know.
I'll tell you your name in Spanish. So your name is Josua.
Say it again.
Josua.
Josua.
Yeah, not Jose, but Josua.
Josua.
Yeah.
Josua.
We'll see if anyone corrects me on that. Any Latins or Mexicans out there that correct me.
Josua. See, I still can't say it. It still got a little accent behind it. So, all right. Well, so I'm gonna go back and everybody's trying to say Spanish. And thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you again, Brittany.
Okay.
We'll see y'all next week.